Happy almost Friday. This is another Oracle Apex office hours. Today is Thursday, May 15th, 2025. And I am Jason Haynes. I'm your host today, and I'm a product manager for Apex. Today's episode is going to be covering some telemetry features in Apex and accessibility updates. So it's going to be a lot of good information right ahead. But first, let's have some announcements and some updates. So we've got several new blogs. Go ahead and take a look at them at blogs.oracle.com/apex. So implementing image and text semantic search in Oracle Apex is the topic, using an Onyx pipeline model in Oracle Database 23 AI. Definitely a great and must-do a review blog to learn more about how to implement such features in your own apps. In addition, we just had a great opportunity to be at the Apex Nordic Tour, the spring edition. A whole bunch of good resources and more are posted in the blog there. So we have several upcoming in-person conferences. We have the ITOUG Tech Day in 2025 coming up here in Italy. And then we have the Ascend 2025 conference coming up in June. That's the second week of June here in Orlando, just in my backyard, so I'll definitely be there. And then a lot of the Apex team will be at Kscope 25 in Dallas. We'll also be hosting another boot camp series, 2.5 days there. For anyone that would like to learn about Apex and start from the ground up, it's going to be a perfect opportunity with a lot of great content and several members of the Apex development team there in person to present that content. So it's going to be a great time in Dallas in the second and third week of June. AOUG is going off in Austria, June 16th and 17th. So you can see just in the next month, we have 4 reasonably sized conferences, including the big conference of Kscope happening here in North America. So it's going to be really exciting. For more information, you can go to apex.oracle.com/go/events, or look at the community tab on our website, where you can bring up this calendar and you can see what's planned ahead. And you'll also be able to subscribe to push notifications for when new events are accepted. You'll get that push notification and reminder to take a look at these new events as they're published. Also, today's the last day to become an Apex Pro. With the latest learning path, you need to follow the link that you see here. And today you can take your free certification. Today's the last day. So be aware of that. If you were already planning to take that test, get on the site today and start taking the test today, so you have that opportunity to get your official certification and that badge of honor to put on your social media. And of course, on your resume, because who doesn't want to be Apex Professional Certified? So in today's session, if you have relevant questions, please use the Q&A section in Zoom. Do not put your questions in chat. We have many members of the Apex team on the call today to be able to help answer your questions, and it's easier to do it in the Q&A section. Don't raise your hand, and just use the Q&A for all questions. You can make comments in the chat, of course. If your question requires a deeper understanding than the couple topics that we have today, please post your question on the Apex forum at apex.oracle.com/forum. So today's speakers, we have Christian Lara and Anthony Rayner, both of which are developers on the team and have put a lot of effort into various features in Apex over the many years that they've been on the team. And we have them personally talking about some of those features today. So we're going to go ahead and start with Christian.
Hello, everyone. Well, my name is Christian, and well, I'm part of the Apex team here in Mexico. And well, today I'm gonna show you how to use the OpenTelemetry feature in Apex. Well, first I'm gonna start by explaining what OpenTelemetry is, what it's used for, and then I'm gonna do a quick demo of the feature. OpenTelemetry is an observability framework that is used to generate and export telemetry data, such as metrics, traces, and logs. This data is sent to an observability service where developers can visualize it. The telemetry data is very useful to them because it contains information about the behavior and performance of their applications and services. In Apex, this feature was recently introduced in 24.2, and it will allow you to monitor the front end of your applications, meaning that OpenTelemetry will generate traces with information about the user interaction, the navigation, the loaded resources, and the AJAX request. This is the first phase of this feature, so currently the configuration is shaped to work with a Redwood observability service. We are already working on phase 2. We plan to expand this feature to allow developers use any observability tools or telemetry collector they want such as Jaeger, Zipkin, or even the application performance monitoring service from OCI. Now, still with this configuration limitation, there are some workarounds you can do in order to use this feature without a Redwood observability service. And well, that's one of the things that I'm going to show you today. So let's proceed with the demo. Okay, so for this demo, I have created this application here. This will emulate in a way the observability service. And well, it's a pretty simple app. We have our interactive report here. And well, right now it's empty, but this is the place where we are gonna see all the telemetry data. Now, I'm not gonna get into much details about all the things that I did to make this application work. I'm just gonna explain them very quickly because right now I want to focus on showing you what this feature does. So instead, I'm gonna share with you this link, and in here you're gonna find all the steps you can follow in order to create this app and to test this feature yourself. Now, a quick note here is that, well, as you can see, this block is originally written in Japanese, but you can use the Google Translate tool here, so you can get instructions in any language you want. So for instance, I'm gonna set this to English. And there you go. Now you have all the instructions in English. It's pretty straightforward and it's only gonna take you 10, 15 minutes. Okay, so I'm gonna share the link in the chat. Now, let's continue with the configuration. So to configure OpenTelemetry, you only have to go to Workspace Utilities, OpenTelemetry, and here you have to provide the endpoint URL of the service where you want the data to be sent to. You also have to provide the endpoint URL of to get an access token used for authentication when calling the observability service. Now, to get these two endpoints, what I did was, well, I created this RESTful service module here. And here I have this post handler. And here, this is gonna receive the telemetry data, which is sent in JSON format. And then it will store it in this table here. This is pretty much what it does. And well, also this module here is configured to require OAuth2 authentication, and that's where the access token comes in. I have this second module here, and here I have this get handler, and this is how we're gonna get the access token. This will allow OpenTelemetry to send the data and to store it in the table. Well, again, if you want to know how to do all of this, you can follow these steps in the link I shared, so you can test this feature yourself. Okay, so now I'm gonna copy this link. This is for the token, so I'm gonna paste it here. Then I'm gonna copy this one, paste it here, gonna save. Now the only thing left is to enable OpenTelemetry in any of the applications inside my workspace. So for this demo, I'm gonna use this app, the Sample Maps app. So I'm gonna click on this, then I'm gonna go to Share Components, User Interface Attributes, and OpenTelemetry. So here we have to provide the product family, which is a configuration metadata required by the Redwood Observability Service. But in this case, we can enter anything we want here. So I'm just gonna use this, I'm gonna save, and that's it. Now OpenTelemetry is enabled. If we don't provide the product family, OpenTelemetry will be disabled. Now, let's run this app and see what happens. So I'm gonna log in. I'm gonna click on this card here. We see the map. Now all the telemetry data has been generated. So let's go back to the observability app and we can go refresh. There you go. Now we have all the telemetry data in displayed here. Now, as you can see, the first thing we see is the loaded resources or all the resources that are loaded prior to rendering the page. And if we select the last one, let's see which one, this one. Okay, we are gonna see all the details here. We see the session ID, the environment, the application name, the Apex version, the page ID, in this case is the home page, the URL where that resource is located, in this case it's a JavaScript file, and the loading times. Then after that, we see a navigation event. This indicates the exact moment when the page is rendered. So if we select this, we're going to see the same information, also the URL where that page is located, and also some extra information about the dimensions of the page, of the screen. Then we see a fetch request. This is an AJAX request. This is to get the cards data. And after that, we see a component event. This is when we click on the card. We see here the events click. This is the element that I clicked. This is the selector to find that specific element in the page. And yeah, the rest of the data. And after that, we see that we are getting redirected to the map page. So we see a bunch of resources getting loaded. So well, I'm just gonna very quickly remove the resources so you can see like the application flow, so to speak. And then we see a bunch of feature requests here. If we click on one of these, we see that we are trying to get a PNG image. We see the status code. This indicates that the AJAX request was successful. And yeah, I mean, so as you can see, all of this is like the application flow, so to speak. Now I'm gonna make this a little bit more interesting. I'm gonna deliberately cause some issues in this page. So this region here is using a custom map. So what I'm gonna do is well, first I'm gonna log out to get a different session. I'm gonna modify that custom map. So what I'm gonna do is to go to map backgrounds. This is the custom map. And this is the URL to get that map. So as you can see here, we need to provide an API key in order to get the map. So I'm going to remove that. And let's see what happens. Again. Click on this. We don't see the map. Now let's refresh. Now if we see the status, we see that now we have some warnings here. I'm also going to filter by session so we can see all the application flow for that specific session. Because well, sometimes we need like the full set of steps in order to reproduce a book. So with this information, you can know exactly what the user did in order to get that book. So here we click on one of the AJAX requests. We see the status code that this indicate us that we don't have authorization to get that image, right? So with this we know that there's something missing in that AJAX request. Okay, so now I'm gonna make this even worse. I'm gonna log out. Gonna modify again that map. Now I'm going to remove something from the URL. And well, now this is not a valid map, so we are going to get some errors. So let's run the app and see what happens. We don't see the map, we don't see the data. So we see the errors here. So now here we see all the error messages here. We see, well, that now we can tell that there is something definitely wrong with this AJAX request. Okay, so now, well, as you can see with this information, you can monitor the front end of your applications. You can, because, well, you can see most of the things that happens there. So also with this information, you can understand how users experience your applications. You can see if they really know how to use it, if they know how to navigate through it. You can track their behavior and see if maybe you need to make some UX improvements on your app. You can also understand the render and load times, and you can quickly identify where a problem might be, such as like a performance issue or an incomplete AJAX request, as you saw in this demo. Okay, so well, I think that's pretty much it. That's all I have for today, and well, thank you very much. I hope this could be useful to you. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much, Christian. We really appreciate that insight. Over to you, Anthony.
Okay. All right. Cool. Thank you, everyone. Delighted to have the opportunity to talk to you today. The My name is Anthony Rayner. I am a member of the development team on the Apex team, and we're here today to talk about accessibility in Apex. So this is an area of great interest and passion for myself. I've worked on the accessibility of Apex for a long time, and it's a pleasure to be able to talk to you about this topic today. So thank you for taking the time to attend, and thank you for the opportunity. All right, so accessibility, what is it? So an estimated 1.3 billion people in the world currently experience some sort of significant disability. And this number is going up all the time because of an aging population, because of an increase in non-communicable diseases like cancer, diabetes, and respiratory problems. So it's increasing all the time. And what is disability? Disability results from the interaction between a person with a health condition and their environment. So it's a product of this interaction as opposed to something that's fixed, like someone is blind or someone is deaf or any other disability. So in addition to those who experience permanent disability, others may experience temporary or situational impairments. So in the images on the right of the screen, you'll see things like someone with a broken arm, using a crutch and a sore leg, obviously. Someone whose battery has run out on their mouse. Someone who's looking at a monitor in bright sunlight. So there are various changing impairments that can happen really to anyone at any time in their lives. So this idea of disability being fixed, it can be challenged. It's not necessarily true. So there are certainly many people with fixed disabilities, but there are also these other situations where people can be impaired for various reasons. So by building with this in mind, we can focus on the person's environment, right? So this interaction between a person and their environment, which results in the disability, the environment we have influence over, right? So if we're talking about online participation, trying to enable everyone to be able to use your systems, then this is this online participation that we're talking about. So this kind of interaction between a person and the systems and web applications that we create in Apex. So what we don't want is to create these impediments to their participation. We don't want to increase their disability. So we have the power. We have the power within, as web developers, as people who work in technology, to be able to try to reduce the amount to which someone is disabled by a fixed or a situational temporary impairment. So what can we do with that power? So you can use Apex. So within Apex, we have a long-term commitment to accessibility. We follow the Oracle accessibility standards and guidelines, which are based on publicly available standards such as WCAG 2.2, revised Section 508, WAY ARIA, these kind of industry accepted and standardized sets of guidelines. Plus, I think we take it a bit further. And we'll come on to some of that in a moment. So we are constantly striving to make the developer experience awesome for everyone, irrespective of their ability or disability, and to make it easier than ever to build accessible apps within Apex. So it's twofold. It's the development experience for anyone, but also for those building applications that need to be accessible. We want to make it as easy as possible for you, right? So how do we do that? So in the framework, we have two kind of goals. So the first is wherever possible, natively accessible by default, right? That's the primary goal in all of the development teams' accessibility life, is to make things accessible by default. It would be wonderful if we created a framework which you could use as a developer and you never need to think about it. You never need to think about accessibility. But unfortunately, and through no fault of Apex or any development tool, it's just not possible to provide a tool that can do this. And there will always be input, configuration, decisions that need to be made by a developer to make sure that it is truly accessible. So where we can't be accessible by default, we aim to guide developers into making those choices. So there's some important resources that I'd like to share. These can be looked at. I would recommend to study these from if you're interested or you need to build with accessibility in mind. These are crucial resources. So the ACRs, or Accessibility Conformance Reports. This is our statement of conformance to all of the guidelines that we follow. So if you go to apex.oracle.com/go/ACRs, thanks Monica for creating that URL yesterday. That's great. And then you need to expand database products. And I can show you here quickly. So if you go to that URL, expand Oracle ACRs, database products. And then if you look at Oracle, search for Oracle Apex, you'll see all of our recent ones. So Oracle Apex updated 24.2 is the most recent published. Hopefully that's gone to everyone. And from there, you'll be able to link down into the different sub ACRs. That's a great resource to take a look at. It lists all of our known accessibility bugs. Then there's the accessibility guide, which aims to guide you as a developer into some of these choices that you need to make, but also provides things like a list of keyboard shortcuts within the development environment. There's a brief section on testing, and we're adding to that all the time. So take a look at the accessibility guide. And then there is also some our API documentation, which I'm sure you're familiar with. There are some useful APIs from an accessibility perspective in there also, and we will come on to those shortly. So 4 principles of building accessible apps in Apex. The first being developer education. So should not be the responsibility of one person on the team. Aim for general awareness of the topic. Similarly, performance, security, aim for general awareness, right? So every developer should have an awareness of accessibility, what the guidelines are, what the standards are that you need to follow. Whenever looking at guidelines, I would always advise to think why and not how. Well, why and then how. Excuse me. So first of all, so for example, if we take a look at this guideline here, this is one of the WCAG 2.2 guidelines, sensory characteristics. It's about providing instructional text to users that don't rely on people's senses, right? So you shouldn't tell someone that they can click on a button in the top right of the page or the circular button to the left. You know, these sorts of sensory-based instructions. You can use sensory characteristics, but you should back them up with something that is universally available, like the text of the button. So you can say, click on the next button in the top right of the page, something like that. So, for example, here, why is it that all these WCAG guidelines have this? And I would say read this first whenever you look at these documents. The understanding documents are brilliant resources, so I would suggest to look at those. I can put a link in here for that just as a starting point. But it gives you why. So people who are blind or have low vision who need non-visual instructions. So, okay, I've got it. I understand why this is important. Then you can look at how to achieve it. In addition, look at what Apex provides you out of the box. And then I would say establish subject matter experts in different areas, preferably developers with disabilities. There is no substitute to have people on your team who understand the obstacles that can be faced firsthand, right? As developers, we can only really guess. I make a best guess about how things work well with screen readers. And then we have Vladimir Goncharov on our team who tells me that I'm completely wrong and we should do it this way. And I'm like, great. So if I would make it a goal of every development team to try and recruit a diverse development team and developers with disabilities, it really does make a night and day difference to the quality of accessibility that you'll be achieving within a development team. All right. I would say just follow Apex best practice, right? So use out-of-the-box functionality, centralize custom application logic. So PL SQL in packages, HTML snippets in template components, custom JavaScript in dynamic actions. So use the facilities and the features of the framework to centralize your custom logic. And the reason is custom logic is inevitable, but it's nearly often a source of it's somewhere I would look first in an application to see if there are any accessibility issues. Sorry. When reviewing features that are going to be introduced into some of the next versions of Apex, we look at any custom functionality within the feature. So have any custom PL SQL regions being used, have custom HTML expressions being used in report columns, have you used template directives or any custom template components? Where's the custom logic? So the beauty of following this best practice is that you can do it once, centralize it, test it once, and then you can just use it throughout your application. So much less overhead. So it's a good practice in Apex in general, but from an accessibility perspective, it just reduces the footprint of what you need to test on every page, which is a good idea because there will be a lot of repetition as you test pages after, page after page after page. So it will streamline your process. Take great care when stepping outside of the box. Again, often happens, right? Custom HTML. We'd love the framework to provide everything that you need. But unfortunately, there are situations where you do need to step away from what is natively available. But just take great care, right? Not just from an accessibility perspective, but from a code quality, security, performance perspective. You have to do all of the due diligence because, and this comes on to the last point, you benefit from all the work the Apex team do for accessibility by sticking to the framework. If you stray from the framework, then it's on you to do that kind of due diligence. So Apex best practice, follow it. Testing. So out of the box is a good start, but not the end. And what I mean by that is I think it's a falsehood that people think that they use Apex and they don't need to worry about accessibility, or they use universal theme. Now, it's a great start. And that's what we invest a lot of time in, making sure it is a great start. There are default lots of features and functionality of Apex that is accessible out of the box, but there are things that can go wrong. There are things you need to do as developers, things you need to check. So it's not the end. Out of the box is sort of the beginning, but your own testing is the end. And no tooling can guarantee something that is 100% accessible. And I would be very cautious about any such claim that a tool makes. And that's development tool, testing tool, AI-based testing tool. You see various claims of 100% accessibility, and really there's no tool that I'm aware of that will do this for you. So with anything that we create, we always try and make it clear that, okay, this part of the application is accessible, but you've still got to think about these other things. Advisor is a good example. The Apex Advisor has some accessibility checks built in. You can run the advisor. You can clear all of the accessibility checks. Does that mean the app is accessible? No. There are other things that you would need to check. So it's just part of, these things should be viewed as part of your testing strategy. Automated testing especially is a really, really good way of frequently running tests against your application and catching low-hanging fruit. But it will, I think someone did some analysis whereby it can only cover somewhere around 25% of the actual overall WCAG guidelines. Automated tool and testing is brilliant for helping everyone on the team catch things early and often, but it's not a guarantee that is 100% accessible. So it should form part of your testing strategy, of which automated manual testing, so checking for color contrast, sensory characteristics that we just looked at, which would be something that would be maybe possible with AI to determine if someone is using sensory characteristics. And it's interesting to see how AI can help supplement folks' accessibility testing strategies. But yeah, currently that would be a manual check. Use of color, so where you've got a particular reliance on color to convey some information to a user, but you've not used an alternative way to communicate that same thing. So someone who is colorblind may not be able to perceive that difference on the page. A traffic light status is a typical example where red and green may not be distinguishable for certain users. So you need to back it up with either an icon or some text or some other means of conveying the same information. Again, it's not about not using color, it's about providing an alternative in those situations. And then finally, assistive technology and user testing. So assistive technology, screen reader testing, and last and most importantly, user testing. You do it last because then you can not waste their time with issues that you could easily have fixed. So you get best use and best value, and it's you're not wasting their time. And it's an iterative process, right? So you test throughout the development process. You kind of think about it during design meetings. If it's left until the last minute, it can cause problems. Things are more difficult to solve at the end of a development cycle, especially with kind of greenfield development or custom widgets and those kinds of things. Absolutely imperative to think about these things as early as possible. I always say accessibility bugs and debt is sort of the most toxic of technical debt, where it's very difficult and often deprioritized if it's left until the last minute. So just try and consider it throughout your development process. And then accessibility issues are often critical usability issues for a subset of users. So sort of please consider them accordingly. So just because an issue affects a subset of users, it shouldn't be looked at in any less serious a way. So for example, if you have a button which has a visible label, but the label is not there for a screen reader user, how serious is that an issue? I would say it's a very serious issue, because would you click on a button without a label? Just because it's a subset of users, try and just view it as a functional usability issue. irrespective of how many users it might impact. And that often helps to kind of see accessibility issues for the real impact that they can have. Try and think about the equivalent for someone without a disability, what the equivalent loss of service would be. And that often will help you think about accessibility issues in a new way. All right, and then finally, user focus. We are in a moment going to look at some of the recent updates in 24.1 and 24.2, and then a brief demo. But the final principle would be user focus. So just putting your users first, really, putting your users at the center of understanding how the application is used and what issues people may face. So I would say review usage analytics. So whether that's Christian's OpenTelemetry data to understand where people get stuck. Maybe they will always stop at a certain control on a create sign up wizard. And it's like, okay, why have they stopped there? What's going on? And then maybe there's an accessible component being used there that certain users can't get past, right? Or you look at sort of the popular pages that are being used, or where things are taking a long time. These types of things can help you understand how your users are really behaving within the application. Proactively gather feedback. Apex has a feedback mechanism built in. So I would say always proactively gather feedback. Perform usability research and laboratories so you can actually see your users use the application. And just generally engage with your users. Where are they blocked? Where are they getting stuck? What's sort of possible but really difficult? So there's a concept within accessibility of equivalent. So there should be an equivalent alternative to something where it's not accessible. So not every byte of every page needs to be accessible, but if something isn't accessible, there should be an equivalent alternative, right? And I think that it truly does need to be equivalent, right? If it means that if there's an alternative that takes 5 times longer and 5 times as many clicks or pages, I wouldn't call that equivalent. It's an alternative, but it wouldn't be an equivalent. So in my opinion, it wouldn't pass accessibility guidelines. So yeah, listen and engage with your users. And above all else, if you can recruit developers with disabilities on your team, you'll get a lightning head start with all of this in terms of understanding how certain users behave within your application and what kind of issues they face. Okay, so we'll move on to some product updates. I have seen some questions coming in and I've seen they've been answered, but we can certainly take a look at any unanswered questions or open matters at the end of the demo. So I'll give you a brief update for 24.1 and 24.2. There are updates prior to this, and we'll touch on some of those things. We have loads planned to help with guiding you into creating more and more accessible applications and making it easier. But this is what we've got today. So in 24.1, we did a full audit of our metadata from an accessibility perspective. And the idea was we want to understand exactly everything that you can do as a developer to influence the accessibility of your application. So we did that. We came up with a bunch of attributes that were important for accessibility. We added the same, and then we marked it as such in the metadata. So there's new attributes in the metadata that identify this as important for accessibility. Plugins got the same treatment. So within a plugin attribute, you can also define an attribute as important for accessibility. Maybe it's your plugin renders an image and it's the description that could be provided for the image that would be available to screen reader users, that kind of thing. Or colors where users choose 2 colors and you need to think about the contrast of the 2 colors together. That would be important for accessibility. So that's what we did. We started with adding help text for all of these attributes, right? So if we go into Page Designer, we can see here, I've got a page within an application showing page 4, Health Patients Report. I select the title attribute, which is the page title. And for all those important for accessibility attributes, you'll see this new section in Page Designer And we spent quite a bit of time trying to make sure that the help that we provide is really thorough and useful. We don't sort of demarcate it as important for accessibility in the property editor yet, but so you do need to dig it, you need to select it to see it. But that's something we're hoping to improve, is to kind of make these attributes even more obvious and visible when you go to Page Designer. So here, take a look at this if you haven't already. Again, it's not for every attribute, but it is for some attributes. And as plugin developers, you can also define this help text so that it will show up in this accessibility section in Page Designer. All right. We also improved the read-only handling in 24.1. So prior to Apex 24.1, when I say read-only handling, I'm talking about standard Apex items or plugin Apex items where the read-only condition evaluates to true. So it's where your item type is in its read-only state, as it were. So there is a new API available to you as a plugin developer, and that we've used from many of our native item types. Sorry, I just accidentally progressed the slides. Called Apex Plugin Util Print Read Only, and it will render an accessible read-only field. The main problem with the read-only fields prior to 24.1 was that they were not really fields. They were just spans on a page. There was no true label, although there was a visible label. There wasn't a programmatic label. And a screen reader user trying to understand what fields or what items are on a page, if they can do insert F5, and that will show them all of the form fields and buttons on the page, and anything that was in this read-only state would not show up, right? Completely invisible. So if you have 5 read-only fields at the beginning of your page that show context information, customer ID, like, whatever it is, it's pretty much invisible unless the screen reader user goes and has a look, or they know that it's there and they kind of manually go back up. So that's the key thing that changed. It made them true read-only fields, visible to screen reader users, also focusable with keyboard, so you can select text from them. And there is an app level setting called accessible read-only items, which will be off for applications built prior to 24.1, but on for new applications built in 24.1 or later. We actually hope to get rid of this attribute in time. It's kind of a weird thing for someone to say, okay, why would I set this off? But it was to protect existing applications from changes of behavior. There's different display properties with spans and text fields. So yeah, just something to be aware of. If you have got applications that were built prior to 24.1, I would encourage you to try and set this to on, test your app for any visual differences, and then then you'll have better read-only support in your fields. Okay, I need to crack on. So we've got new image description support in the display image report column type. Through 24 and 24.2, this bottom bullet, improvements to screen reader usability, was Vladimir's dedicated and concerted effort to improve every page of the development environment for screen reader usage. I'm not exaggerating to say he's made hundreds, if not thousands, of improvements in the development environment over the last 2 or 3 years. Page by page review, reviewing headings, landmarks, page titles, labels, and general row headers. That's ongoing as well. He's covered off the key pages, the main flows, Page Designer, other edge cases and edge pages are being worked on. Also in 24.2, notably, we are now built to WCAG 2.2. This was a recommendation standard back in September 23, and now we are built to WCAG 2.2 along with, it's an Oracle directive, so Apex follows that. The 24.2 and 24.1 shortly will be available, the ACRs based on WCAG 2.2. We also improved the read-only handling in our development environment, so we basically set that at accessible read-only item switch on for all 4000 series applications. There are new APIs in the JavaScript API doc, Apex message, ARIA message, and ARIA alert message. And these are to allow you as a developer to inform a screen reader when something happens. So Again, Apex native components try and take care of this, but there are situations in applications where you need to do a bit more to tell the screen reader user that something's happened. Maybe the page has been updated. Maybe you've added a comment to a comments list, and there's no good update that's provided by Apex out of the box. So there are new APIs that allow you to do this. We hope to have a dynamic action to allow you to do this in the future. And then there's some other enhancements to the development environment, specifically the code editor, with a few usability improvements for screen reader users and for contrast. Okay, so we're going to get on to a quick demo. So we'll go 5 minutes, and then we'll have 5 minutes just to cover off any additional questions. So if I go to Page Designer, I was going to show you JAWS, but unfortunately I can't because I can't share my sound, but I'll work around it as best I can. So if we go to this page, this is a standard interactive report page. And on this page, I would like to have a look at the landmarks on the page. So landmarks are a mechanism to provide structure to screen reader users. And one of the ways I can do this is to go to the developer toolbar and say show landmarks. And it's a bit muddled on this page, but what we've got is we've got a banner, which is like the page header. That's good. We've got a breadcrumb navigation landmark. So there are different types of landmark: navigation, banner, main, region, and then you can label landmarks. So this header stuff is all taken care of by Apex from Universal Theme on the page and the main landmark. And then on the page, you're in the domain of region landmarks. So on this particular page, and it might be easier if I just show this landmarks extension just to show you what's missing. We've got the main landmark, and then there is search bar of health patients, buttons next to search bar of health patients. So I know that interactive report regions should have a region landmark around them as a container for all of the stuff within the interactive report. So there's a problem here that the health patients region is not exposed as a landmark, right? So if I go to this page in Page Designer and I go to the health patients, I can see that the template is none. And that's the reason why it's not showing up, right? So if I go to interactive report template, we can then see we get an accessibility section in the property editor. And this displays when the template has landmark support, right? So in this case, we can say, yep, we'll lose landmark. The landmark type is the template default, and we can see in the list that the region type is the template default. So the templates have a defaulting mechanism. So we sort of have a best guess about what the landmark should be when you use a template, but you can change it at region level. So you have full control. This is one of those things that you just need to check, right? Maybe it's a search region, and you could change the type to search, or maybe it's an additional navigation section on the right of your page or on the side of your page. You can choose to use the navigation section, for example. But here we'll just stick with the template default, which was region. The default behavior will be that it gets the health patients title, but you can also override the landmark label if you wish to, if it should deviate from the region name. So if we save this and run the page, and then we can have a look at the landmarks, and we can see that we've got this health patients region landmark now as a kind of container for everything within it. So this is nice. This is better. And all regions within Apex have this facility to be exposed or not exposed as landmarks on the page. In addition, on this page, this is where I was going to show you JAWS, because the row headers of this report have not been set, right? So what that means is you have column headers, but reports also have the concept of row headers. When you're moving around a table with JAWS or any other screen reader, it's all about the context. So it will tell you when you've arrived at a new context. So when you move across columns, it will tell you the new column name. And when you move down a column, it will tell you the new row name. in the absence of row headers, it defaults to row 1, row 2, row 3. So if I want to move down the date of birth column or the state column as a screen reader user, and row headers are not set, I would hear row 1, Georgia, row 2, Massachusetts, row 3, Rhode Island. So it's really of no use at all, right? A screen reader user would need to basically navigate down the columns that they're interested in. So say last name here, for example, and then move across to what they're truly interested in, right? So it's a bad usability issue for screen reader users. And what you can do as a developer, and this is actually an advisor check, so you can run the advisor and this will show you any reports that don't have the row headers set. And we can say, okay, in this case, maybe first name plus last name would make a good row header. And then there's this value identifies row property in Page Designer. And what we can do is set that to on. You can see all of the accessibility help text within here. So it sort of guides you into what row headers are and why it's important. And then when we run this page, a screen reader user would hear Adam Miller, Georgia, Adam Stader, Massachusetts, Andrea Miles, Rhode Island. So they get the context of the row as they move down. Column headers are automatic in interactive reports. You don't need to worry about it. We would love to give you a good default row header column in creation, so you don't need to do this after you've created the interactive report. And I think that's maybe where we could use our data dictionary to look at an appropriate default column to set as the row header column. But then you would still need to check it was the best. Sometimes it's, it might be 2 columns that need to be defined to make it sort of unique and meaningful. All right, so I think I'm 58 minutes past. I was going to show you the idea of basically this is an inline icon as defined in an HTML expression in this report. This is accessible, but it's better if you can shift this, basically move it into a template component in plugins, in shared components, expose it as a template component like here. So you can say emotions, which is this template component I created for this. You can select the column of interest. Basically just a way of using one of those Apex best practices to centralize custom logic. So when you have such an icon and you want to use it throughout your application, then you don't need to replicate that HTML on different pages. All right, I think that's pretty much it.
Thank you so much for that, Anthony. This has been very insightful even for me. But I do have a quick couple questions. First one, I know you're not sharing your screen now, but what is that extension you have in your browser that gave that hierarchical view? I don't remember you mentioning it.
Oh yeah, it's called, I'll give you a link in the chat here.
Okay, that'd be great. And the second question is based on someone in the chat or in the Q&A. Igor had left a service request, an SR number, regarding Apex accessibility violation for an interactive report because the TH elements are created with the same ID. And if that was really a concern, would that not cause problems with JAWS today?
So yeah, that's that interactive reports with fixed headers have a duplicate ID problem, and WCAG 2.2. So there used to be a guideline which mandated that that you couldn't have duplicate IDs. In WCAG 2.2, that guideline was actually dropped in favor of if there are duplicate IDs, then does it represent a true accessibility issue? Okay. And in this case, with interactive reports with fixed headers, yes, there are duplicate IDs, but it still works perfectly well with JAWS, with NVDA, with VoiceOver. It doesn't represent a true accessibility issue. So we did have it as a bug, but we actually closed it as won't fix when we moved to WCAG 2.2, because it's a definite valid concern, and we hate to have duplicate IDs in our markup. From a best practice perspective in HTML, you just don't want that, right? So we always strive not to have duplicate IDs. But in this case, because of the fixed header logic, it's actually quite difficult to get, it's a complicated problem to solve with the way that we do fixed headers. So we just focused on making sure that what we had worked well with JAWS and with other screen readers. So yeah, by all means, if the person who asked the question would like to reach out to me for more information, I'm more than happy to.
Yeah, definitely. Apparently, a tool they're using still turns it up as a problem.
Yeah, it will do. Yeah, that it comes up on automated tests. I don't know what they use. It'd be interesting to know what they're using actually, whether it's
Okay.
yeah, which extension
Yeah,
or
he's mentioning
which
that
tool.
in the European Union rather, the law will take effect on June 28th in terms of making sure that this passes. So I don't know if that's the basic question overall was, is this something we're continuously working on? Is it going to be improved upon in future releases of Apex and so forth?
Yeah, no, it's yeah that I'm aware of that, but again, this against WCAG 2.2, we don't see this as a violation anymore. It would have been if we'd have stuck with WCAG 2.1 because of the parsing guideline, but with WCAG 2.2, because it doesn't represent a true loss of functionality, we don't see that as an issue. And far as I know, the EN guideline is based on WCAG 2.2. So, but yeah, very happy to take that offline if we need to.
Okay. Yeah, he just mentioned in the chat they're using the IBM accessibility checked browser extension.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm not aware of that one.
All right. Thank you for that, Igor. We'll try to follow up offline. So to everyone that's on the call, thank you for joining us for this past hour. I hope you learned a lot. I know I did. It's always a continuous journey to try to figure out the best practices for all these kinds of things. Great new features that are in Apex today, and even more coming down the pipe in a future release of Apex. So Anthony, thank you so much. Christian, thank you so much. And big shout out to all the other team members on the call that have been supporting the Q&A here on the Zoom today. So until next time, thank you everyone for your time, and we'll hope that you have a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.